So a few weeks ago, I returned from a trip and something happened that triggered me. It triggered me so deeply that I felt myself going into a very deep depression. I'm just gonna take my time loving me. I knew that it was the signs of me going into a depression because I've been depressed before. I've been in a very dark space before, so I knew how that felt. If you're new here and you're not familiar with my life and my story, I went through a very traumatic experience 3 years ago that I am still healing from. I am a survivor of domestic violence and sexual assault. If you want to know more about my story, join my Patreon, link in the description box below. However, one of the things that I want to share on this channel is intentional healing. In light of that, I want to share with you all what I did to avoid going into a depression. So this was literally 3 weeks ago, not even a full 3 weeks ago, probably like 2.5 weeks ago. I got back from my trip and something in my body and my mind switched, and I literally was in such a dark space. I was not eating, I was not sleeping. I was walking around like a zombie, literally. All I knew is that I was not okay. I couldn't hide it. I'm usually really good at hiding how I feel from the people around me and from my family. Like sometimes I'll be going through it and my parents, because I do live with my parents, they don't know. My children wouldn't know. Nobody around me would know that I'm going through something emotional. But this time I couldn't hide it. I was just in a really dark space. I'm still working through that, but as you can see, I'm able to sit here and talk right now because I'm doing way better than what I was doing at that time 2.5 weeks ago. So I want to share with you all some tips and tricks that I personally use to avoid actually going into a deep depression, and at the same time still allowing myself to feel all of the emotions that I was feeling and work through that. Tip number 1, allowing myself to actually feel all of those feelings. For the first 2 to 3 days, I cried and cried and cried and cried. I cried a lot, but I knew I had to still feel it. I did not want to try and suppress what I was feeling and bury it or distract myself to the point where I didn't acknowledge what I was going through. Because you can suppress something for as long as you want, but at some point that pressure is going to explode. So I allowed myself to feel all of my feelings. I was feeling sad, angry, depressed, hurt, confused, like all of the emotions you can think of. I was feeling them all at once. So I did allow myself to feel it. Besides taking care of my children, I did pretty much nothing. I tried my best to work when I could, but I was in such a low and dark space that I did not do much. I was not eating, I was losing weight. I'm naturally a petite person, so I don't have much weight to lose. But when I'm stressed, when I'm going through something, I lose my appetite naturally and I instantly start losing weight. But I allowed myself to feel all of the emotions. After those first 3 days, I noticed like I had to tell my mother, because of course, like I said, I live with my parents and anybody could have seen that I was not okay. But it was easiest for me to confide in my mother more than anybody else. So I just told her what happened to trigger me, but not in detail. Then I just let her know that like I'm not okay. And she wanted to fix it. She wanted me to just be better. And I remember like everybody would leave the house and I'm home alone and I would call her and I would just be like crying, and she was trying to figure out like what can I do to fix it. And I just told her, you can't fix this. I just have to go through it. But I said, but I just need you to know that I'm not okay right now. And I had to let her know because my mind was so gone that like I needed at least one person to know to check on me, and that I was in a space that was that dark. So anyways, I allowed myself to feel, but I also notified someone close to me that I wasn't okay. That's tip 1. Tip number 2, spend time in nature. This sounds very cliche, but trust me, it works. It works for me all the time, but specifically when I feel myself in such a dark space, I am more conscious about making sure I do it. Spend time in nature. 3 days went by and I had not gone outside. And I felt so defeated. One day I was just sitting down crying and I said, like, it was almost like a voice spoke to me and was like, go outside, just go outside. And I went outside, no shoes. I sat in the sun and I just sat there. I just sat there in the sun for like 2 hours. And I would usually spend my time outside earlier in the day when the sun isn't like beaming hot, because I do live on an island. But I went outside like around 2 o'clock and I didn't care. I could have sat in the shade, but I sat in the sun. Probably wasn't the best idea, but I did. I sat in the sun and I was just sweating, but I wasn't hot because it did have a nice breeze blowing and it was cool. But the heat of the rays, something about the heat of the rays was just like warming my spirit. I don't know how to explain it. And then just grounding myself with my feet touching the earth, all of that helped. And from that day, every day I made sure I went outside for at least an hour. So spend time in nature. Tip number 3, talk to someone. Talk to anybody. 2 days had passed and my best friend didn't hear from me. And she texted me mental health check-in because we allow each other 48 hours. We allow each other 48 hours to go MIA before we do a mental health check-in. Because, and that's not with everybody, but specific me and this particular best friend, like, we communicate in some type of way at least every day. So it's not normal for her to not hear from me, even if it's a quick message, a voice note on Messenger, something. So she texted me mental health check-in and I was honest. I said, I'm not okay. And she responded, you want to talk about it? And I didn't want to talk about it, but I forced myself to talk about it. And I ended up sending her like this long 10-minute voice note, crying, snot, everything. And of course she responded, and then that started a dialogue, and that helped me a lot. Like, after talking to her, I felt a little shift to where I was able to now start eating. I forced myself to go to yoga again, which is part of my next tip. But like, talking to her definitely helped. Before that, I called my therapist, because if you are new to this channel, I have been in therapy since I left my children's father. It will be what, 3 years ago this month? Today is the 7th. Today is actually the day that I left Ghana to come back home. Today makes literally 3 years. Anyways, like I said, if you want to know more about my story about that, click the link below and join my Patreon. Trust me, it's a hell of a story. Very triggering. So if you are also a victim of domestic violence or sexual assault, it might be very triggering for you to listen to that. But it's also great to know that you're not alone. So there's that. Anyways, I digress. Yeah, talking to someone. I called my therapist. She didn't answer, and then she called me back. And I literally only called her to schedule a session with her, because I don't go to therapy consistently anymore. I used to go every week. For like 2 years, I was going every week. And then it changed to like every 2 weeks. And now it's kind of like once a month-ish. So I called her to schedule a session with her, and she called me back, and I couldn't help it. I just started crying on the phone, and she was like, we can schedule something, but let's have a little impromptu session right now. Tell me what's going on. So I started talking to her, and that helped as well. So my best friend and my therapist, and my best friend is sometimes my therapist, to be honest. She knows it. Like, she be therapizing me too. So talking to someone helps. Whatever it is you're feeling, it doesn't even matter what it is. But if you feel like you're in a very dark space, secluding yourself, shutting yourself off from the world, not socializing, not communicating, at least for me, that does not help. Talking to my best friend and talking to my therapist definitely, again, helped me helped push me in the direction away from the depression. So yes, I'm still sad. Yes, I'm still going through it, but I was further away of sitting in a depression than I was prior to talking to them. Tip number 4, get back to doing the things that you love, things that made you happy, things that make you feel good. For one of the things for me is yoga. Prior to my trip last month, I'd go to yoga 3 times a week, and I do Pilates in between. Moving my body is something that is very important to me. But I hadn't done yoga since the second week in December up until that week that I finally decided to go back. So going to that yoga class helped me a lot because, like I said, I wasn't sleeping either. So going to yoga, that night that I went to yoga, it was the first night that I was actually able to fall asleep at night. Getting back to doing the things that I love, not only did it helped me sleep that night, but the process of doing yoga and moving my body afterwards, I felt like this tension release off of me. So that helped a lot. I also went to a 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞 dance fitness class, and I pushed myself to go. Again, I was not in the mood to be around people. And that's also the reason why I notified my mom that I wasn't okay, because she was behind me in making sure I went to these things. The day I went to yoga, I thought I wasn't going to go again because she was running late to come and drop off the car, and something had happened. So I had just said, oh, well, I'm not going. My mother made sure I went. She called my sister and was like, hey, so I need to, your sister needs to use your car to get to yoga. I really need her to go to yoga. So my sister came, picked me up, and I went to yoga. So I'm not saying that these things are easy to do when you're in such a dark space, but having that support behind you helps. That's why I say talk to somebody. That's why I said tell someone who's close to you, in close proximity to you, what you're going through, so that they can be that extra push for you. They can come and pick you up. They can come drop you off. They can bring you food. Anything that would help you get back into a normal routine in your life. So I also went to that fitness class, and that was so much fun for me. It was the first time I was just dancing and moving my body in a long time, and just being around amazing women. Anyways, another thing I did is I went out. So the retreat that I went to in Bali last year, it was a girlfriend retreat through an organization called Girlfriendism Travel, and we all pretty much stay connected through a Girlfriendism group chat. And we had a meetup that same week. So I did yoga, it was a meetup, and then the next day was the dance fitness class. So I went to the meetup, and I told my mom, I was like, I don't want to go, but I guess I should go. And she made sure I went. I was like an hour late, but I went. And when I got there, I was the last one to arrive and all. I think I was the last one. But when I got there and I walked into the group of ladies and I sat down, and they were in the middle of everybody introducing themselves, giving their updates on what to celebrate for their 2025 and all of that. And it was my turn, and I started talking, and I realized that I was in such a dark space that I couldn't think of something to celebrate for myself. And I just started crying, like tears. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna get emotional, but like I just started crying. I couldn't help it. And those women, I am not gonna cry, they gave me a support that I didn't know I need in that moment. They literally all gathered surrounding me, and they prayed over me, and they hugged me, and they loved on me, and they lifted me up, literally. And I needed that. I didn't know how much I needed it, but I did. And after that, I was so happy that I went, because I would have missed out on that support, that love, that prayer that I needed in that moment. Go out. And I'm not just saying go out drinking or to the club and stuff. That's not going to help you. That's going to numb you. But go out and do something that's going to lift you up. Surround yourself with people who are going to lift you up. Don't numb the pain. Trust me, I wanted to numb the pain. I don't smoke anymore, but I could tell you something. If I had access to some weed that week, I probably would have smoked, because I so badly wanted to numb the pain. Anyways, Go out, surround yourself with people who are going to uplift you. Do something productive and positive. What was that? Tip number 4? Tip number 5, journal. So journaling may not be for everybody, but for me, I'm a writer, okay? I've always had a journal for as long as I can remember. I still have a journal that I used to write in high school. So journaling was always my way of releasing and getting things out of my mind onto paper. And it helps me. So I had not journaled for the year up until literally 2 weeks ago. I started back journaling. I couldn't bring myself to journal. I couldn't understand why. But I started writing 2 pages in, 3 pages in, 4 pages in, 5 pages, and I just kept writing, and it all just was spilling out. Probably wasn't making sense, but I was pouring it out on that paper. And I felt another weight lift off of me, just getting that stuff out of my mind, my heart, my thoughts. So if you journal and you notice that you haven't been journaling lately and you're in a very bad space, pick up that pen and paper and journal. Or if you're not someone who journals, try it. Trust me, it won't hurt. It could only help. It won't hurt. Even if it don't help, it won't hurt. So yes, journal is my 5th tip. Tip number 6, music. So from the day that situation happened that triggered me into going into this depression, I was avoiding listening to music because I knew that it would probably just make me cry and make me sad or whatever. And that's because most of the music I would normally listen to would make me think about that situation. So I have an uplifting and healing playlist on my Spotify. So I listen to specific music. I listen to a lot of Landrell, a lot of my mantra and affirmation music. That's what I was listening to. Like, I was literally listening to people speak life into me through the music. That helped. It helped me stay out of my head. It helped me to quiet the trauma talk. I call it trauma talk. We'll get into what I feel that is. I don't even know if that's an actual term, but trauma talk is real. So we'll talk more about that in a different video. But it quiets the trauma talk. It quiets all of the overthinking and extra noise that goes on in my head, and instead pour positivity and affirmations into my brain. So I was listening to, like I said, a lot of Landrell. Landrell has gotten me through some of the darkest times in my life. When I first left my children's father, all I listened to was Landrell. His music is music for the soul and spirit, okay? I just have to say, like, if you are literally going through a hard time right now and you're a woman, even if you're a man, but for Black women going through it, go listen to some Landrell. He is more of a poetic rap. This is not your classic R&B or hip hop, none of that. Like, he's like poetic rap, speak life into you type of music. That's tip number 6. Tip number 7 and the final tip is repeat affirmations. Again, sounds cliche, but I was literally doing this. I would be in the shower crying and I would have to start saying, I am enough, I am worthy, I am beautiful, I am confident. I literally used to have to lay down in bed at night and just repeat those affirmations in my head. I don't know what it is, but I just knew I had to do it. One that I said a lot during that time is that today was better than yesterday and tomorrow will be better than today. Literally every day I said that. Today was better than yesterday and tomorrow will be better than today. Every single day I said that. Because in that moment I felt like I was just going through the worst thing. And I had to remind myself that, you know what? You feel a little bit better today than you did yesterday. So remember, tomorrow, you're going to feel better than you feel today. And just taking it one day at a time and repeating those affirmations when I started to overthink and get in my head and feel like I wasn't enough, like I wasn't worthy, like I wasn't beautiful. Just thinking the worst of myself, repeating those affirmations help. I even have an affirmation app on my phone that my best friend shared with me sometime last year that we both have on our phones. So we have it set for affirmations to pop up on our phone 10 times throughout the day, and you read those affirmations to yourself. So like, affirmations help. And I got so used to it being on my phone that before what I was recently going through, I would see them come up, but I wouldn't read them until like the end of the day. But I started making sure every time that affirmation pop up, I read it, and as well as saying my own affirmations. So affirm yourself. That is tip number 7 and my final tip. So I'm here getting ready for bed. As you can see, this video was not recorded with the rest of the video that you were watching, but I was getting ready for bed, and I remembered that I forgot to mention what is probably the most important tip that I use to avoid going into that depression, and that is prayer and meditation. Call it what you may, but if you pray, you meditate. If you meditate, you pray. I literally prayed through writing, through talking to myself, through thinking, and just asking God for clarity, to give me the strength to cope in healthier ways, to give me the strength to let go and trust in this process, to pretty much heal what I am feeling in the moment, heal the pain that I'm feeling in the moment, take away the confusion that I'm feeling. Anything that you feel that you need in that moment, pray and meditate about it. And I'm still doing that. I also like to pray through writing. So in my journal, like I would like pretty much like write a letter to God, and it's pretty much me talking to myself. So do it in whichever way works for you, but at the end of the day, God is within us. So bringing yourself to a moment where you can be calm and quiet enough to tune into yourself, that's very helpful as well. For me, I like to go to the beach and do that. One of the days during that hard week, I literally went to the beach and just sat in the sand. I didn't go to the beach for the purpose of getting in the water, nothing. I mean, I did dip my feet, but like I just sat in the sand and I was just looking out into the ocean, looking up in the sky, and the silence and just the silence of my thoughts and just listening to the sound of the waves helped a lot. And that was just me giving myself a moment to tune into myself. So prayer and meditation is very helpful regardless of your religious belief. Like I said, if you meditate, you pray. If you pray, you meditate. Whatever higher power you believe in, pray and tune into your higher self, especially in your time of weakness. So I just wanted to add that last tip, and now the video is going to continue. I hope this video reaches someone who needs it. I hope this video helps you. If you are currently going through a rough time, know that you are not alone. Know that the beauty about hitting rock bottom is that you can only go up from there. Another thing I remind myself all the time is that I've been through worse, so I will be okay. But and it's sad that I have to even say that, but it's true. The thing that triggered me last month, yes, it was hurtful, and yes, it triggered me to a point where I was going into a depression, but I've been through worse. So even though I felt all of it in a moment, I kept reminding myself that I won't feel like this forever. That's one thing what I've been through have taught me. I am not going to feel like this forever. So that's why I allowed myself to feel everything I was feeling. Like I said, I am still going through it. I'm still working through it, but I am coping in a much more healthier way because of these tips. So I hope even if you don't apply all 7, if you are going through it, try something. Be intentional with your healing always. Know that you matter, and know that tomorrow you'll feel way better than you did today. To all of my melanated women, protect your womb by any means necessary. And to everyone watching, protect your peace by any means necessary. I wish you all love, light, and prosperity, and you will see me in my next video. Peace. I'm gonna take my time.